Hello and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham, and I am joined as always on Tuesday by Osceola recruiting analyst Charles Fishbein and Nick Carlisle. What's going on, guys?
Doing
Oh,
good.
it's going prepping for whatever this hurricane's about to be. Which
Yeah,
we're getting one every month now.
Fish, you're a little bit closer to the action right now with the hurricane than we are. What's the weather down there like in South Florida right now?
It's sunny and hot and humid. Same day, same thing every day.
Every day. Okay. All right. All right, guys.
I don't want you guys to have to hit the, mute button on me. So.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. Well, listen, we're going to get into some recruiting first, but obviously, Nick, you were at practice today for Florida State's Tuesday practice. Just we don't want to get, you can only read so much into practice as we've all learned, but just overall enthusiasm level of the team, what do they look like? Any injury report coming out of post practice, anything like that?
Energy wise, it was about the same as it usually is, but it was just not a good day offensively. There isn't this may come as a surprise, but there's not too many outstanding offensive days in practice, and that's going back to how the preseason practices went. There was a reason particularly why the practices weren't as good offensively today. Unfortunately, we can't report that right now, especially if it actually does become something that more just like a day thing. But yeah, couple of lots of interceptions. Ricky Knight had a pick. Quindarius had another pick. Yeah, so I mean the energy was there, but it was an offensive struggle day, which is not what you want to hear after a really strong offensive performance of 14 points.
I am almost sorry I asked.
Yeah.
He needs to just come on here and say DJ threw for 5 touchdowns. I meant 5 touchdowns. It slipped out.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. At least we're not Auburn's offense. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Something's got to make you feel better. Something's got to make you feel better. All right, so let's talk about where things are going a little bit better, and that's on the recruiting front. A lot of good news on Saturday. We got Byron Lewis committing to Florida State over Miami and Georgia, and then Nick saw a lot of high priority recruits, both committed and otherwise, on Florida State's campus on Saturday night. And then coming out of the weekend, we got a couple of official visits planned for later in the fall. But let's start with the commitment, Fish, and Byron Lewis. And I know we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but the 6 p.m. crowd for Seminole Sidelines is a little bit different than the 3 p.m. crowd. So just a little bit on your take on Byron Lewis and the importance of getting on the back, in a good spot with recruiting after losing Hilson and Myron Charles to decommitments. Just a little bit about your thoughts on Byron and how this could maybe, for lack of a better track, get FSU back on track on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I mean, last year FSU landed Cam Davis and Malachi Danzy. I think those two, along with Byron Lewis, provide a very good future in 25 and 26 for FSU. You got 3 guys that have a ton of upside. I think they could be as good of a backfield as Florida State's had in a very long time. And I really like Lewis. He's a big kid. He runs hard. He's a one cut and go. There's not a lot of wasted motion. Like when he cuts, he can make that first defender miss. He gets it open. He'll run hard between the tackles. And then when he has to, he'll kick it outside on those stretch runs. I think he'll be very effective in this offense.
Yeah, and obviously that bleeds into the recruiting weekend visits. And Nick, most noticeably, since we're talking about running backs, Florida State had another really, really good 2025 running back on campus. I know you spoke with him. Tell us who it was and kind of what was the conversation like with him.
Yeah, after it was Usman Kroma, and after he took visits to Auburn twice and Georgia once in the opening few weeks of the season, Florida State got him on campus on Saturday. I do believe that's the last place that he will be visiting until he makes his decision this weekend. He does have a commitment date set for September 28th. I think the important thing to note right away is that even though he is going to be committing on September 28th, he is planning on taking visits after that commitment as well. So this is really kind of just, all right, I'm gonna pledge myself somewhere, and I'm gonna continue to figure things out down the road. I think he's going to be back for the UNC game on November 1st or 2nd. I can't remember which one it is. So he's going to be back there.
It's a good weekend to have him back. Florida State's offense may explode that day.
Yeah, no kidding. And to be frank, we talked about it with Usman. It's like, in terms of the running attack, this is probably the best that the running attack has looked from Florida State since that opening drive against Georgia Tech. So we talked a little bit about Cam Davis and how he's being able to get a little bit of playing time early on in his career, how good LT was in the first half on Saturday. And with Usman, he's one of those guys that it's a roller coaster. It's an up and down type of deal with Usman. He gets a special feeling every single time that he comes on campus, but I'm sure he feels that way about his other top choices right now in Auburn and Georgia. I don't know necessarily if this has elevated Florida State to a point where they will get his commitment on Saturday. I put in a future cast for Auburn a couple weeks ago, and I still feel pretty good about that. This may not be a recruitment that Florida State wins immediately, but since he is still continuing to take visits and he's still showing interest in visiting other places, throughout the rest of the fall, maybe this is one that Florida State can hang around in there with, especially if they continue to turn things around this season.
Yeah, it's funny because I was texting with one of the Auburn rivals guys yesterday, as a matter of fact, and he's having a very hard time getting a beat on Osman and where he may go. And he knew he was here this past weekend, and of course he's also concerned about Georgia, as I think everybody is, particularly with the way Florida State and Auburn are struggling on offense. That could affect what this kid ultimately does. But Fish, what do you think? I know you think Florida State should take them both if they can get them. How do you? I mean, like we said, this kid, the tea leaves are really hard to read with this kid. What do you think about Florida State's chances of landing his commitment on Saturday? And I think we're getting to the point. I think with NIL, I think we are getting to the point where almost all these things are going to come down to December 4th or 5th, whenever they sign.
Yeah, the whole thing is just as long as the communication's there, and the kid doesn't shut Florida State off, they're going to have a shot all the way to the end. And recruiting really just starts once they commit. I think that you have to hold on.
I think you're right anymore.
What?
I said, I think you're right. With the NIL, I think they're all coming down to you're going to commit and save your spot, but you're also not afraid to leave because everybody's looking to. I mean, you can negotiate up until December 4th.
Hey, listen, when you go to one of those auctions, they start off at one price, and it's like, you keep going until the guy finally closes out the auction. But that's what this has come down to is these guys, you have to just hang in there. I think if, as long as their communication's there, you got to recruit these guys. The way Florida State won is going to get their offense back on track and Norvell has shown this since he's been at Florida State, is when they've had an effective run game and they can control games with their running game, they're going to be in every game. And it takes a lot of pressure off the defense. And then you have that ability to break the long runs, which Florida State hasn't had a whole lot of this year compared to years past. But that's what Lewis brings. I believe that's what Dancy's going to bring. I believe that's what this Cromach kid bring. They bring that ability to create short drives, 2-3 play drives where they can bust off a 50-yard run. That takes a lot of pressure off any quarterback, whether it's even DJ. You need that guy that can take the pressure off. I think the lack of running game has really hurt the quarterback position as well this year, that they haven't been as effective as they've been in years past. But you cannot turn away a kid like this. I'm sure you guys have seen him on campus. He's physically impressive. He doesn't look like a kid that's in high school. And I've always said, when you could get those guys that look different, act different, play different, you have a chance to play long into December and January now in college football, because it's about talent. I know everybody wants to put it on the coaches, and if you want to put it on the coaches for the talent they bring in, fine. But it really is. The more top end talent you have, like a Cromon, a Byron Lewis, the more games you're going to win.
Yeah, and going back to this weekend and who was on campus, I thought there were obviously several big names, Nick, but we had started talking a couple of weeks ago, particularly when FSU had not won a ball game. Was there a reason to be concerned about guys like Tramel Jones and Solomon Thomas not being on campus for the first 2 home games? Obviously, they were on campus this weekend, and we said, listen, if they're not on campus for the Cal game, then we need to start to worry. I know you talked to one or both of them. Just kind of talk about what they had to say, and obviously some of the other kids that you saw on campus over the weekend.
Yeah, so I mean, you're absolutely right. It was really a big week. Maybe not even so much for the kids that were coming in, but the commits that were coming in terms of guys that either hadn't been on campus since the season started, or you would like to have seen on campus, because the talent requisition is a part of it here. You really, if you're going to have the start of the season that you did, you're going to want to really, really try hard to hold on to your guys. Just even more so than naturally speaking. But did speak to both CJ Wiley and Solomon Thomas. Pat, you've spoken to both of them as well. You know which one was more talkative of the two. It was definitely Solomon. And I've been asking these kids. I don't. Everybody and their mothers directly asking these kids, what this start means to their recruitment and everything. But I enjoy asking these kids about their perspective on, what's going on there, because I mean, they're football kids too. They're football players. They've been playing football for years and years and years. They know the dichotomy of a team. So I asked Solomon what's his perspective on things, and he said, look, I feel like, he felt like the camaraderie was there, but they just weren't quite clicking, maybe for not wanting to step on each other's toes. He felt like Atkins coming back made an impact, but he was like, I'm glad that it wasn't. He was a little nervous because he's like, I'm glad that they didn't overperform, and that would have meant Atkins was really, really a key in this entire thing. But both him and Wiley were happy with the wins. We asked CJ about where things are with his recruitment, because Georgia's head coach Kirby Smart was at his high school game on Friday. And he said, I don't really talk to Georgia like that. This win meant a lot for his recruitment, especially for seeing how the passing game looked a little bit better. But the important comment was that, I don't really talk to Georgia like that comment. So he's either underplaying it, or, he's being really truthful in that, he's not talking to the Bulldogs like that. And CJ has been on campus multiple times this year for games. So that is pretty important.
Yeah. And listen, I thought it was big that both those guys got on campus. I think it helps with the other kids they're still trying to recruit. Obviously, Solomon mentioned that he was disappointed that the other guys left the program or decommitted, talking about Hilson and Meyer and Charles. But he also said, listen, we want guys that want to be here. We don't want the guys that are essentially what he said, going for the bag or for the glitter. I think it was something to that effect. So, obviously that was huge. Now, listen, we also know that there were some other guys that are committed to this program right now that visited other schools. Malik Clark, the wide receiver from North Carolina, was at South Carolina. I know you've got an update on Dalen McCutcheon too, Nick.
Yeah, so allegedly McCutcheon was at Texas A&M this past weekend for a visit. He is expected to be at Texas the following weekend, so this upcoming weekend. So that'll be interesting to see if he goes to Texas, or he, hops over to. How far is Austin from Dallas Fort Worth? I'm actually not sure.
2 hours. It's not
like
far.
2 hours or so.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting to see, if he makes it to Texas, or maybe he makes the drive and watches the Seminoles when they go on the road to SMU. A couple of other guys that we didn't talk about, I kind of rambled on the commits that were there. Chase Linton, the defensive end, did make a visit on Saturday to Florida State. He seemed to enjoy his visit. I talked with him last night or the day before, or it might have been Monday night. And he enjoyed his visit. He liked how the coaching staff treated him. I think there is mutual interest in an official visit, so that may be coming sooner rather than later. He does have 2 visits coming up to Georgia. He's got an unofficial on the 5th, and he's got an official on the 12th. So he's going to go back-to-back weeks to Georgia. So Georgia really is still the heavy favorite here. But in talking to Linton, he's making sure that he doesn't rush into anything. He's getting more and more offers. I think he got offers from Illinois and LSU last week. So Florida State may have bought themselves some time in this recruitment path to be able to get further, into this one and maybe try and contend for Linton. And really the final note that I have here in terms of, OVs and all of that is Toby Hastrup has set an official visit for November 2nd. So if you remember from a couple weeks ago, he's that 4-star defensive end from Maid Creek, Texas, that everybody's jumping all over. Florida State is going to get the last official visit, assuming he doesn't set anymore. So that's some pretty big news that came out late last night.
Yeah, and he's also going. He's going to go to LSU, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Boston College before Florida State. So right now they're getting his last visit. I think the one thing that's unknown about him is will he end up going into February because recruiting is so new to him. So it'll be interesting to see whether he ends up being a early national signing guy day, or if he goes back to the more traditional date. But obviously, Florida State got in on him quickly. He's got a ton of offers you can go coast to coast with who this kid has offers from. And again, this is a kid that's playing his first year of football, was a track guy. And if you watch his film, Toby Hastrup, his name, you can go to Huddle if you're listening or watching this. His last name is Haastrup. Watch his highlights. You can see the raw ability, raw natural football instincts, and you can certainly see the explosion. But he's a guy at Florida State. Got in fairly early. In one of the first 2 weeks, he started getting offers, and he has just blown up since then. Fish, I know you wrote Fish Bits earlier this week or possibly last week. I know you mentioned about TJ Alford, who was on a official visit here last week. Do you have any updates on him and where you think Florida State stands with TJ?
Yeah, I mean, like I've said this before, they do have somebody in their corner that is a Florida State guy. So TJ is definitely listening to what Florida State has to offer. I believe, as long as that communication is there, I think they'll have a legit shot. A lot of these guys, you're just going to have to hang in there, keep getting them on campus. From what I was told, he's going to go to another game during the year, so that's a good thing. And you just got to see where that goes.
All right, 2 guys that are committed to Florida that you wrote about. Defensive tackle Jeremiah McLeod, who's no longer at Gaston County. Somehow he has meandered up to South Georgia, is playing at a South Georgia high school. And then you've got Josh Moore from West Broward High School, both committed to Florida State earlier this summer. But you think there may be a chance that Florida State can get back in the picture with both these kids?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Moore play a couple times this year. You want to talk about a really, really talented receiver. He's taken his game to another level. He's already, my son playing high school football now. They got a lot of friends, and Josh Moore keeps telling them he's not committed really to Florida, that he's going to open that thing back up. So I just from being around the high school football circuit, it's pretty much seems like that kid. It doesn't look good for the Florida Gators holding on to him. Especially with the season they're having. And I think the McLeod kid, Jeremiah, the defensive tackle from where he was from Gadsden County, and he's now gone, I think, to Lee County.
Yeah, he's up there.
Florida State should have been
plays with Eastman, actually.
Yeah, Florida State should have been on him a lot longer, honestly, with the need for D lineman. I think he's very good. I think they're going to have a shot at flipping him, too, as well as the local defensive lineman from Rickards. So, this thing's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You got to take your time in this whole thing. And they're going to get guys to come in that want to play there, and they're going to sign a pretty good class. It's not on pace to be what it was, but there's still a lot of good football players they could get after.
All right, another guy that's kind of an enigma was Floyd Bacard. He was from Canada, moved to I think Alabama, played at a small Alabama high school last year. Now's down in South Florida at Miami Central. Was committed to Oklahoma, and obviously has since backed off that commitment. Fish. What can Florida State get on him? Back in on him, and do you think maybe with losing Meyer and Charles that gives them a little bit more of a impetus to get back involved heavily in his recruitment?
Well, listen, anybody that went to the Under Armour camp will tell you that he actually outperformed Myron. Was the better of the two prospects. It wasn't even close. He dominated that camp, and then he went to the Rivals camp where he went against Buchanan and a couple other guys that were better and did have the same success, but you still saw the raw power. Very physical. He reminds me of Broderick Bunkley, who played at Florida State.
Oh, and Fish, we lost Fish for a second.
He disappeared. Byron Bunkley. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. It is. Listen, I think that it would be. I think Fish he's back. No, he's not.
Oh.
We think we got some technical difficulties with Fish, but yeah. So basically, what Fish
out of water.
Yeah, Fish is out of the water. He does need to get back on campus. They need to, and especially with there he is. Fish, finish your thought on Bacard.
I was just saying. I think with Miami was the school that everybody thought was going to be the fallback option, but they kind of cooled on them because they have other guys. They picked up Dante Simpson, a Chaminade kid. They also picked up the kid from Gainesville area that was committed to Ohio State. So I think Miami, they're going like big game hunting. So this is going to give FSU a chance to land a very good player, one that they could develop into possibly another starter down the road a couple of years from now.
Yeah, and then another kid I think we're all keeping a close eye on, and that's the offensive tackle Mario Nash from Kemper County, Mississippi, committed to Florida. Was committed to Mississippi State, but he's kind of opened it back up, and then of course the other guard we talked about before, but just ask you again about him, Fish, and obviously Nick Daniel Pierre Lewis from Seminole Ridge. Where do things stand right now with him?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel's a nice prospect as a backup plan. I really think that, I don't think guards is what Florida State needs. I think they need tackles, and they need to start recruiting tackles, guys that are in the 6'6", 6'7" range, that have length, that have that ability to, grow into those bodies and become more of the Simmons types. That's what I think they need. I think the guards that the Lewis kid can be more of a wait and see. And, if you go to 105 scholarships, he's not a bad take. But right now, I don't think he's a guy that you need to take at this point.
Yeah.
And he does have an official visit set. He'll be here for Clemson next week. So that is something to monitor going forward. Yeah.
And that will probably be the most highly attended weekend of all maybe outside. Florida would probably be up there with that, but Florida is also close to National Signing Day, that game. But I think Clemson will it's going to be a night game. I think we know that now, right? It's going to be 7 or 7:30,
something like that.
One
of the two. I think I still think they're waiting on the outcome of this weekend's game before they announce it, but it is slotted for 7 or 7:30, and it will be interesting to see exactly who shows up. I tell you what's going to be really interesting to see this weekend, especially with Florida State being out of town, is what the UCF visitors list looks like for Colorado this weekend, because that there's going to be some kids there to see UCF, but there's going to be some kids to be there to see Colorado and Deion. So I'm going to be interested to see if any of the kids committed to Florida State end up at UCF this weekend. I'm not saying that they will. I'm just saying it's something that if you follow recruiting, you might want to pay attention to, because that's a big time game. And I know Sam Spiegelman, the Rivals, has already put out an article on some of the big name kids that are going to be there right now. None of them are committed to Florida State, I can tell you that. So
there's some former guys. I think Hilson's supposed to show up there, but I don't know what Hilson's supposed to show up there. Javion, but that ship's sailed in terms of Florida State, I think. So, that's kind of just he's going to be there type deal.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to take about a 90-second break, and we're thinking that JP may or may not join us. He's supposed to join us at 3:30. It is now 3:28. Not everybody has the habit of jumping into the waiting room 5 minutes early like I do, but we will be back in 90 seconds. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the reaction to the post-Cal game, the victory to Cal. It was kind of underwhelming response to the win, and I'm going to talk about why I think maybe we should readjust our expectations on how upset we get after a win, and then talk a little bit about Mike's ride or die philosophy with DJU. Nick, you're more than welcome to join us if you'd like to stay on, but I think Fisher's got a couple minutes, but we'll be right back in about 90 seconds and talk a little bit more about FSU and the college football weekend last weekend.
The Backshore. That stretch of fluffy sand just beyond the reach of the salty waves. The place reserved for volleyball nets, cookouts, and the air filled with fun and laughter. Celebrate the Backshore with Backshore Apparel. Grab an amazingly soft and comfy Backshore Apparel beach hoodie to keep you protected from the sun's harmful rays. Or the Backshore revamped trucker hat, a modern twist on a classic favorite. Crafted from moisture-wicking fabrics, ensuring they're lightweight and breathable. Not to mention durable with their unique floating feature. Shop now at BackshoreApparel.com. And right now, FSU fans get 10% off your order with code FSU10. Hey Seminole fans, Alumni Hall is your ultimate FSU shopping experience and has moved to a new location off Timberlane Road in Tallahassee. Shop FSU gear from Nike, Champion, New Era, Yeti, and more. Alumni Hall has Seminole gear for the entire family, plus accessories and gifts. Spend $150 and you'll earn $10 off your next purchase with their Hall Pass rewards. Stop by their new location on Timberlane Road near REI or shop anytime online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Seminole fans shop. Finding an experienced lawyer you can trust is crucial. With over 50 years of combined litigation experience, the attorneys at Mowry Law Firm are dedicated to providing our clients with exceptional legal services, focusing on car and trucking accidents, premises liability, and wrongful death. Call 904-824-7799, MowryLaw.com.
All right, welcome back to the Osceola Seminole Sidelines on Recruiting Tuesday and Takeaway Tuesday. And we had JP Peterson on for a second. We don't know what happened to him. And as ironic as it may be, I'm in North Georgia doing some family things and working from North Georgia. And we've got some bad weather here, so we'll see how the connection goes. But guys, listen, I write a column every week called Takeaway Tuesday, and we've lost Fish now too. Listen, there was a lot of reaction, most of it negative, even to a Florida State win, Nick. And, hold on. Now we got multiple people.
Oh, the crew's here.
JP's here.
How's it popping on?
So he knocked me out, man. It's his fault.
Yeah. The too many stars on one show. Our show cannot handle the star power at the bottom of these.
I'm surprised to see Fish. Wow, yeah. Fish! I thought you ended it all today.
I'm doing good, man. I just got to go film some high school football. So.
For those who the inside joke is Fish did like a butt dial audio in the group chat. So it was him walking into the house, and then you hear the door slam. So it's like, I'm like, oh my god!
I had no idea.
Did he just off himself because the DJU still starting? I didn't know he didn't.
No, I got laid out by the wife, and I just.
Oh my god! I'm like, no, don't do it. It's not that
clothesline from hell.
I mean, it's bad, but it's not that bad.
She went off the top rope. The top rope, man. Super snooker style, man.
I got you. Right.
Yeah. Well, JP, you and I talked on Monday, and we're not going to start with DJU, but we're going to get to it, okay? We're going to get to it. But listen, all right, so my takeaway Tuesday article came out today. It's at theosceola.com.
Excuse me, let me move the elephant in the room then.
Yes, that's right. And you're
start talking about something else besides DJU. There we go.
Yeah. We're going to get to that.
Excuse me, elephant. All right.
So
You're the host.
FSU got its first win on Saturday night, and it was a big win. It was an important win because when you're 0-3, any win is important. And so my first talking point and takeaway Tuesday is called one. WON is the loneliest number. And if you're famous with Three Dog Night,
That's right.
one is the loneliest number you'll ever do. And despite the Seminoles win over Cal, that did not seem to help calm the concerns of the FSU fan base over the optics of the win. Here's what I'm going to say. FSU did not play a pretty game on Saturday, and if you expected them to play a pretty game on Saturday night, you have not paid attention to what happened the 3 previous weekends. Listen, we got plenty of time to talk about the optics on Monday through Friday of the next week, but I think if you're an FSU fan, you've got to recalibrate how you feel about these wins, and you've got to enjoy them because, listen, the next lyrics are from that song, or 2 can be as bad as 1. It's the loneliest number next to 1. All right, so if they beat SMU, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not going to look pretty. So are we all going to sit around here and just tie ourselves down to this unexpectedly anemic offense and not enjoy any of these wins? Or are we going to take this team at what it's worth?
It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. You can't.
They're exciting in all the wrong ways.
Even winning this way is unacceptable. You can't accept any of it. No.
JP, would you take back the Wildcat offense they ran against Louisville?
Hell yes. Just score the effing ball. I don't care how it looks. Matriculate the ball down the field. That's all we want. I don't care what it looks like at this point. Get an ox cart out there and leather helmet. I don't care.
You care what it looks like.
The ball.
You now know what Iowa Hawkeye fans feel like week in and week out for the last 20 years.
No, it's not okay. I don't want to win like this. If this is the way we're going to win, I don't want to play the game. Bring back COVID.
The problem is you got 8 more games to play and a couple.
Do we?
Yeah, and some of these
didn't we quit the last time Clemson came? Like we'll let them come over and then just said we're not going to play. Can't we do that again? Why can't we do that again?
JP wants another COVID outbreak.
Now this hurricane's coming like a week early.
Hurricane, yes.
Yes.
We'll hopefully there's another one in 2 weeks next week. Yes.
But I'm just saying, I mean, I think the reality for this team, JP, in all seriousness, is that the wins are not going to be pretty. We're not going to see a 45-3 win out of this team outside of Charleston Southern. And we can sit here and make ourselves miserable all season, which we were the first 3 weeks on these shows, or we can say, hey, they got to win. They got to win the only way they can win, which is play. And this is the other thing. This is not your mother's recipe for Florida State football where you have complimentary football on both sides of the ball. The recipe for this team, because the cupboard is not fully stocked like it was last year. The pantry was full. 10 NFL guys. You got 4 guys that are probably going to be drafted this year off this football team. The cupboard is partially full this year, and you can't make the same cake without the same ingredients, and they don't have the same ingredients as they do last year, and unfortunately it's not what Florida State fans are used to. But we talked about this on your show. Right now, I think if you're a Florida State fan, the goal would be to figure out a way to get to postseason play, get those extra 15 practices for what's going to be a young team next year. And I think the way to do that is
the only
great.
I think if you sit here and say we accept winning football games this way without an offense, then you don't leave open the opportunity for change. You're just accepting that DJU is the best we can do. And I vehemently disagree. I think there are 2, maybe 3 quarterbacks on this roster that are better than him. And that's it. And that's my opinion. Because there's no way Florida State should have the 120th ranked offense in college football. And the only way that's possible is if you're playing a guy at the most important position that, I apologize for saying this, nothing personal, is completely incompetent and hampers the concepts of your offense. It's like pulling in 2 totally different directions. You are hurting yourself. You're not even taking advantage of the rules. This is the clean and most simplest answer. It's Occam's razor. The most simplest thing is the most important thing and the thing that must be done. Change the effing quarterback.
Right.
Immediately.
And I'm not arguing with you that there doesn't need to be a change, and we'll talk about that later. But my point is, right now there's not going to be a change, and right now this football team is who it is, and there's a recipe for it to win ball games, and it does not include an explosive offense. And Mike has doubled down again this week on DJU, and so you got to play great run defense, you got to play great red zone defense, you got to be special.
Guys,
on special teams.
Help me out. Help
and
me,
you
help
got
me out.
and you got to hope that you produce just enough offense to win a ball game, which is exactly what they showed us on Saturday versus Cal.
Yeah, Saturday was not. DJ had nothing to do with that win, other than he was the starting quarterback on record. I mean, because
I'm not
basically,
disagreeing with that.
like, listen, I get what you're saying, Pat, but when you have the worst offense in FSU history, all right, and we're going back 40, 50 years. I mean, like, I don't think they were this bad when they were an all-girls school on offense. Like, this is just dreaded. Like, I mean, it's brutal. Like, watching that game, and I watched it like 3 times, I still can't get over that they were driving and the pick he threw, that, like, any quarterback gets pulled for that decision. Like, this is just, like, there comes a point you're like, all right, I've seen enough. I get how much we've given this kid in NIL money. I don't know what handshake Mike had with the dad, but man, like, please, for the love of God,
or what's
like,
in the agreement,
dude.
All right. Here we are. We're to the ride or die, the elephant in the room,
and we can't even ask Clemson to do it. Hey, Pat,
this is what we're going to.
You tried to talk about something else. I wouldn't let you.
Yeah.
Clemson won't even take him out because they know how bad he is. They're like,
okay, now
don't hit him. Don't hit him.
This is exactly. I think this is exactly what I said. That the offense was bad, the quarterback was bad, and it did not really have anything to do. It was a bad offensive, and they won the game anyway. I'm trying to figure out exactly what I said. But I lead into ride or die. That listen, they got by with a bad offense, and I think that's going to be the way it is this year for this football team. But listen, the elephant in the room and the main talking point after FSU's 0-3 start, and since it beat Cal, is why is Mike so tied to DJU and why he's going to ride or die. And I've gotten questions like this, and you guys stop me when you think I hit on something that may be true, because I don't know. Is Mike's ego so big that he's unwilling to admit he made a mistake, or thinks that he's the guy that can fix DJU?
You don't have the success that he's had making decisions like that. So I'm going to say,
is this somehow related to Mike? The deal Mike made with DJU, or possibly NIL related? That would be hard for me to believe. Is Mike trying to ensure that both Brock Glenn and Luke Krummenhoek stick around for a spring quarterback battle if he gives neither extended play time this season? If he is,
that makes the most sense. But
if he does let Brock play this year, what's that?
That makes the most sense, but you're essentially saying I'm going to sacrifice the season so I can have a battle next year, right?
Coaches want to win.
That seems like
they're not worried about guys leaving. Like, you're not going to worry about next year. He needs to get this thing turned around. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just think that DJ had some moments for Oregon State last year. I think he thinks, because listen, he turned, Jordan came to Florida State, they developed him, but I think the one mistake is a lot of that came because of Jordan. I mean, I keep telling people, like, Jordan's the outlier. Like, he put in all the work, made himself good. I don't know what DJ does extra. I don't know if he has that same inner drive that Jordan has, but he sure doesn't have the ability to make plays like Jordan. It's just, I don't know what Mike did. I just think it's one of those situations where you know what? You've seen the potential. Maybe he's done it in practice, and he just thinks it's going to translate to game day. But you guys have seen him in practice, and all I hear is that he keeps throwing picks. So what's the difference between practice and games? Usually what you do in practice is what you do in a game.
Yeah, and listen, everything I'm saying, every question I'm asking you guys is questions I've gotten via text, phone call, email. And now this is the other one. Is he doing it because if Brock takes over this year and the offense plays well, Luke could potentially enter the portal? That's another question I've gotten. Why doesn't Brock have more credibility with Mike after being fed to the dogs in the Orange Bowl?
Yeah.
After most of the teams played, most of the best players on that team opted out, quit, whatever you want to say. And these are just some of the questions and scenarios that have been set to me.
I would say this, and I always complimented Mike for his loyalty to Jordan Travis. When he could have gone out and gotten a bunch of other transfers, he stayed with him, and I think the reason he did because he knew that the team was behind Jordan, that he had this team, he was the leader of this team. I think there were maybe other guys that came into the mix that could have transferred in with better skills and better throwing skills, but Mike went with his gut and said, "I'm going to stay with a guy who leads this team," and that was the secret to the entire sauce for the last 2 years, in my mind. And so that loyalty was repaid. The loyalty that he should have showed to Brock for taking a bullet in the Orange Bowl was, I'm going to go out and get a bridge quarterback. That was a bad move. From a loyalty standpoint, it sends a signal to the other players. That's exactly the thing he didn't do in the Jordan Travis case. He should have gone with his precedent. He should have learned that lesson, that he made the right decision, not because of maybe some perceived athletic ability that's better, but maybe some other more, I think, important qualities in that person. I think Brock would have been the best person to lead this team. And you would have gone into this season knowing, hey, this is a bit of a transition year. We're not expecting to win a national championship. We're not going to try to put a Band-Aid on this thing with an experienced quarterback and see if we can, finagle our way to another playoff. There's 12, right? I think it was a bad move.
JP, I just think he misjudged the talent on the roster. I do think these guys thought, all right, we could get back to the ACC title game, and then there's a 12-team playoff. We could go 9-3 and win the ACC. I do think that they thought they were one player away.
Missed on that judgment as well.
And they misevaluated. They did not do a good job of self-scouting, but they did go after two guys. Listen, I would have gone after Cam, which was the smart move. They went after Cam Ward. They went after the kid that's at Ohio State. But once you lost out on those two, you should have said, all right, is what we're going to get better than what we already have? And the answer's resounding no. Like, there's
if it's not a knockout like Cam Ward, then you don't do it.
Yeah, there's 0% chance that Brock and Luke are worse, or the walk-on quarterback from Orlando. Like, if they go to 80th in total offense, they're better. Like, there's 0% chance.
All right. Well, here's another thought I have on the whole quarterback situation. All right, you're getting ready after SMU to enter a stretch that's got Clemson, Notre Dame, North Carolina, Miami. If you do not play Brock Glenn in this game against SMU, you cannot play him against Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami, and North Carolina. You can't do that to the kid. It would not be right to do to the kid. He deserves a shot to play, and I think Mike Norvell needs to go full Billy Napier and play Brock Glenn every third series against SMU if he's not going to start it.
I think he should give him all the reps this week and give him the start. That's the best way to get him ready. Give him a full week of true preparation. If you're not giving him the full week, you're handicapping him even more. Give him, if you're going to go. Give him all the reps in practice. Get him ready like you would DJU and let him give a shot, at least in a game. And then, listen, if you got to go, everybody says you can't go back to DJU. Why not? Yeah, he's still going to be here. He got to stick around to cash them checks, right? So
you don't think the Jags are going back to Trevor Lawrence next week?
Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are.
I mean, what are we doing? I mean, this is a pro model.
What do you lose? Like, what if Brock does a great week of practice and comes out and we actually have an offense and we beat SMU? Well, then you actually go into the Clemson game going, hey, we got a better shot than what we had 2 weeks ago. I mean, what's the downside? If he goes out and lays an egg, you're at the same spot. DJU's not getting any worse. Well, I shouldn't have said that.
I have faith that he can get 21 points on the board. I really do.
Yes.
I don't know how many they scored against Louisville, but it was a lot more than DJ scored. I know that. So,
and you know what? I'll say the same thing about Toafili. Why did you bring in Roydell? Why did you bring in an average back from Alabama and say you're now the starter instead of the guy has busted his ass for 4 years and been here and went and played and did everything you've asked him to do? And how did you repay that loyalty? I went out and got an Alabama game, a guy who's not even better than you, and I gave him the number one job.
Yeah.
What the hell are we doing? What the hell are we doing?
Well, that has come to an end because Roydell is now hurt. Now it is Lawrence. And
Roydell, that's not on you, by the way. I'm not talking bad about you.
Yeah.
That's on the coaches. Yeah. That's not has nothing to do with you.
No.
Same thing with DJU. This is not DJU's fault. It's not his fault. No. He's the last, and I hope he has a wonderful life and everything works out great for him. But
yeah, listen, he seems like a good kid.
The anger I have and the coach have is at the coaches. It's not the players at all.
Yeah. I think we all understand that. I mean, none of this is meant to be a swipe at somebody as a person. It's about football or
even them as players. They're just not.
It's about football, and obviously there's the listen, as we've talked about it, almost everybody that I know that was against a quarterback change coming out of week 1 or week 2 is now all on board on it. And those a lot of those guys have football experience, either playing or coaching. Those are guys that were not for it, including Mark Salva, who works with us. There's a former Florida State quarterback that, who I respect and have known for years, who believes there needs to be a change. And listen, I think it's going to continue to be the most massive noise about Florida State football until something happens. And like I said, I don't think you can make that change after this week. I don't think you can throw Brock to the wolves again against Clemson. I don't think you can do it against Notre Dame. I don't think you can do it against Miami. I don't understand why he has not been getting reps before now. And I think –
is he not getting any reps?
He's getting
not
reps.
Not on Saturdays. No,
not
I'm talking
on Saturdays.
About I'm talking about Saturdays.
Okay.
He hasn't played a snap.
He's getting reps in practice, but obviously.
Yeah. I mean, they're both practicing.
Do we know what kind of reps? Are we allowed to say what kind of reps? What percentages?
I mean, DJ's taking most of the first team reps, but Brock is firmly getting second team reps with some run with the first team every now and again. So it's not like they're shoving him to the back of the closet, and they're certainly not doing it like they were in the preseason where Luke Kromenhoek was getting some of the second team reps instead of Brock. So Brock is getting, obviously he's not getting the first team reps that I think everybody wants to hear that he's getting coming out of the practice week, but he's getting his practice reps for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so listen, it's a problem. We all know it's a problem. We're going to talk about this probably every week.
We could talk about the new kids that played so well.
And that's what we're going to do. We're going to slide over to the defense because we saw some very good things out of the defense.
My voluminous notes out here.
The last 6 quarters of defense or so since the second half of the Memphis game. They were good throughout the Memphis game except for the first drive of the second half where they allowed Memphis to get the 21st point on the board. But listen, we have certainly seen Josh Farmer stand out. He had his best game of the year against Cal. Florida State certainly needs more of that consistently from him. Patrick Payton had his best game. Marvin Jones Jr., you can say he didn't have a great game, but he helped you close it out.
Made some plays.
Then listen, I think then the last part of my thing, JP, is coincidence. I think not. I'm not a big believer in coincidence. Never have been. But the improvement of the defense, to your point, just happens to coincide with the influx of younger players or more playing time for guys in the rotation. You look at what Daniel Lyons has done and Grady Kelly have done. I think that they started pushing Josh Farmer and Darrell Jackson, and Josh Farmer responded. I think they started putting Sione Lalehi, even though he's not a younger guy, in the lineup, and that's pushed Marvin and Patrick. And then on the defensive backfield, it is a youth movement. Edwin Joseph, Quindarius Jones, and KJ Carter.
Both those guys.
Both
those guys were such
go ahead.
Breaker. Yeah, Edwin and both those guys were difference makers in the secondary. You could just see that they see the game differently, or they're not thinking. They went out there and just played, and they let their talent show. It's like sometimes these other guys are like they're overthinking everything. My God, it's like they're just paralysis by analysis. And the young kids just come in and they just don't care. They're like, yeah, I got to go play football. They maybe not as on the details as they need to be, but if you say go play press man, go. What else you got? What else you got to do? Go do your job.
I mean, we've seen it with guys like Juice Cryer at linebacker, right? I mean, now I think some of it is
a player.
Obviously, I think some of it is that these players are getting more time in the system and playing more tackle football. But I don't think that I think you see a better, more well-prepared football in DJ Lundy now that he knows Juice Cryer can go into the game for him. Right. And I think the competition at the other linebacker spot has helped with Cam Riley and Blake Nicholson competing for reps. Now,
obviously, I thought Cam was great when he was in there.
Cam didn't play a ton this past weekend, but Blake is a young guy that keeps on getting better and better with every game. Is he where he needs to be? No. But listen, I think the competition for playing time is what motivates these kids more than anything else. And
Absolutely.
I think we're seeing the benefit of that on defense, which leads me to the offensive side of the ball. Why the hell are we not seeing it on the offensive side of the ball? Listen, Jalen Early makes massive strides from game 1 to game 2. You've got guards that are struggling. We have not seen Chris Otto or Jacob Rizzi in the game.
Need to see both of them this week.
Yep. And then, of course, we're getting younger at running back by default. Nick, you can join in anytime you want, buddy.
Yeah, and I'm just enjoying the show here. Tell
me about the new kids. Tell me about the new ones and who should be playing more.
Which new kids specifically? Just the younger guy? I mean, obviously, Chris Otto is one that I think we all thought we would see by now with how specifically Terrence Ferguson and whoever slides into that right guard slot, whether that's Keandre or
we've got some good young offensive linemen.
And you do, and you have guys that are hungry. And just going back to what you were talking about with the defensive guys like Q, guys like Edwin, you're actively seeing guys who are not afraid to go and make plays. And I think specifically in the first 3 games, you saw a lot of older guys, and whether that's due to a lack of leadership somewhere along the defense, whether that's just paralysis by analysis, whether that's just them being in their own heads. You saw a lot of guys that just didn't want it.
They flashed. They played. They're making decisions at 100 miles an hour, and that's what you want to see. The other guys, I don't know what they're thinking. They're reading. They're just not playing hard. For whatever reason, it looks like 2 different speeds to me with the young.
It's 2 different speeds, and it's really the hunger. And not to pat myself too much on the back, but that was like one of my keys for the game this week. It's like if it comes to it and guys aren't playing well, you need to get some of the younger guys in there, if only to piss off guys like Jackson and Farmer and Peyton, who have had their spots or think that they have had these spots locked down for weeks now. The best motivator is getting somebody pissed off that they're not getting the playing time that they think they deserve. Now, whether that's on the interior, I think that's especially true at the linebacker position, where we've seen Juice and we've seen Nicholson just completely take over in terms of, and the linebacker play still hasn't been perfect. And you got to forgive some of those moments where you see Nicholson get sucked way too far into a play action.
Way better, though. Better.
It's better. It passes the eye test a little bit more. And to the point, which is what you were talking about in the segue to this, Pat, it's like you see that uptick in energy on the defense, and you're wondering why is that not happening on the offense? Because the more that the defense continues to play well and continues to show flashes, the more you realize that the offense is really what's going to make this team lose football games down the stretch. So whether that's at the quarterback position, which I know we talked about it, but my official position on it is like, what did DJU do on Saturday that Brock Glenn cannot do? I thought they completely toned back the difficulty of the game for him there. There was a lot of one-read throws attacking the corners on Cal. And I'm like, why can't Brock Glenn do that? Why can't Brock Glenn do that? And especially, I've started clocking him. I started clocking DJ rather in practice. I've started going 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. You would be shocked how many times the ball is still there 4 or 5 seconds into the play. But I've caught up. There we go. I've caught up.
Nicely done. Nicely done, Nick. Well done.
Coming back to the whole Brock thing, I mean, he brings a element to the offense that you don't get with DJU, and that's the ability to run, and that's what makes this thing more frustrating.
Is that largely based on that?
Yeah.
So how?
Well, his offenses at Florida State have been. It's not the way it was at Memphis. That's what makes this also
It's
baffling.
like asking a Wildcat quarterback to suddenly be a drop back passer. Like that's not going to work.
Yeah, well, I think Mike's had a massive success at Memphis with drop back quarterbacks.
Right.
I think that's why he thought he could do it with DJU here. It's not working though, but I do think that listen, would putting Brock in for a couple series a game, would that push DJU to be better like it has the guys on defense? I don't know the answer to that. It has to happen before we know. But I do know this, that you get a guy like Juice Cryer on defense that's given he sacrifices his body. He's not the best athlete at linebacker, but it means something to him, and it shows in the way he plays.
He's a great kid too.
Yeah,
that's a big part of football,
every
what you just
play
described.
matters to that kid.
Yeah, that's
every
a big
play
part of
matters.
football.
He got hurt, extending himself to make a tackle, if I recall correctly, against Memphis. Then he's back in. He doesn't go to the locker room and have to be brought back out. He goes over, sits out a couple plays, and comes back in. But yeah, listen, I think it's going to be fascinating. I'll tell you. I don't think we're going to.
Quick thing I saw, Pat. I wanted to jump in here before I got to get out of here. As I wrote it down in my notes, that number, I think it was number 10, their tight end, Dyches.
Yeah,
when he was running through the secondary, time and time again, guys are making business decisions, and they're just not meeting physicality with physicality. Not everybody. The younger kids seem to come up and lay the lick, but there's too many guys out there that just do not want contact. And you can hide yourself in practice, especially the way they practice now. You can hide yourself, but when comes to game time, it's way too apparent that this secondary is so freaking soft. And guys, you can run through it all day long and you're not going to get hurt. Can't play ball that way. You cannot play ball that way.
No, you know what, JP, what happens when you play that way? You end up getting hurt.
That's right. Exactly. 100%.
More guys get hurt trying not to get hurt than guys get hurt that are going full speed. Now, listen, the good news is it's a little less apparent each week, and hopefully that will continue. I think that's something the coaching staff's got to demand out of the players in practice and hope that transfers over. I think they've got to thud more. We've talked about that, but but listen, the defense has improved, and that is the positive coming out of this last game. Absolutely. And I think it kind of gives Florida State hope, because if we go back to the argument last year, that the defense could have carried the team in the playoffs. You got to hope this defense can carry this team to a bowl game, and by that I mean 6 wins. Now maybe Mike will surprise us all, and get DJU and this offense going. And listen, it's not. We've talked about this before. I'll be very clear on this, and I will always. The problems on offense are bigger than DJU, but he handles the ball more. And Blake
if he gets this offense going over 28 points a game, I will mea culpa in a very.
Listen, I am not expecting
that with DJU, by the way, with DJU. Yeah.
I'm not expecting it. I'm not expecting it. I'm just saying, but I hope this.
He does that, then he's a better coach than I thought he was.
Yeah, listen, I would. I've made it clear. I would definitely, and if you read my article, you'll definitely know I've made it clear that I would like Brock to, at the very least, go Florida style to get every third series. But listen, it's going to be fascinating. It certainly sounds like he's tied into DJU for the long term, and we'll see how that plays out for this football team. But it's a fascinating question that is resonating throughout the FSU fan base, from the expert fan to the casual fan. Everybody wants to know, and nobody has a good answer. What's that?
That's for sure. That's the only question I get when I leave my home.
That's right.
It's about the only question that's on our boards too.
To
be honest with you.
All right, guys.
All
right, JP, we'll see you next week, and I appreciate it. Nick, appreciate you coming in on the recruiting and staying with us for the rest of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I was getting sucked into the conversation there. When you guys start going off, and it's like call and response all across it. I'm like, okay, let's follow.
Yeah, we probably need to have somebody with a mute button for all 4 of us. Just say,
just treat it like back when you were doing, like, I don't know, like some kind of schoolwork or camp. It's like, okay, Pat has the microphone now. Let Pat talk, kind of deal.
That's right. That's right. All right. Yeah. Well, we hope you've enjoyed the show, whether you're listening live, watching live, or listening taped or watching taped. Please subscribe to the Osceola YouTube channel if you're watching. please subscribe to our podcast if you're listening on podcast. And obviously, we have all post-game Cal coverage and all pre-game SMU coverage at theosceola.com, including Nick's recruiting stories on Solomon Thomas and Chase Linton, and obviously who was there this weekend. And then Kurt and Bob have practice reports from the day. Obviously, I have Takeaway Tuesdays that's just gone up, and Jerry will have a column coming out here soon. But we appreciate you joining us on the Osceola Seminole Sidelines, and there will be 2 to 4 of us back tomorrow at 3:00 to talk a little bit about the last media availability of the week, which will be tomorrow. And Florida State is still trying to firm up its plans of when it will travel to Dallas due to this what's supposed to be just a vicious storm coming our way. And hope that all of you are taking preparations wherever you are in Florida and in the Southeast to be safe, because this is a looks like a massive storm based on the last reports I'm getting as my phone continues to blow up about that and the quarterback situation. But everyone have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow on the Osceola Seminole Sidelines.